Opinions expressed in this episode are personal. They do not necessarily reflect the views of this streaming platform.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Be Diverse. I am your host, Andrew Stoute. This episode is dedicated to all my loved ones who've supported me through this journey. A lot of times we're kind of talking in organization. One of the big topics that's coming up lately is the 4-day work week. A lot of companies and a lot of places around the world are trying this. I know there's some companies in Canada that has tried this as well. And it was interesting to me. So I thought I would dive into it. And I thought it would be interesting to get into it with a recruiter because I wanted to get the viewpoint of what people are actually looking, and are people actually looking for this, or are they actually asking companies if this is a possibility. So our topic today is the 4-day work week, and my guest today is Najette Kanan. Welcome to the show, Najette. We are so happy and excited to have you on here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrew. I'm really happy to be here.
We're excited to have you on. How are things with Najette? What's going on? What's the word? What's the deets? Give us everything. What's happening?
Najette is busy building probe recruitment, busy putting herself out there, networking, and doing her best to get things going.
And how do you find how is that going? Like the networking part is, because a lot of people seem to be doing a networking thing. How's the networking thing going for you?
Well, it's an interesting thing, networking. I think that early on in my career, I was quite intimidated by it because I didn't really understand, the ins and outs of networking, and it seemed a little inauthentic, and as I matured professionally and personally, I found that networking can mean a lot of different things. And for me, I've grown to learn that for me, it means building relationships. So so I think that it's more, doing more one-on-one style. I've tried different types of networking, and what works for me is really that one-on-one approach, being able to build those relationships and partnerships and grow together, so I have a different mindset to it.
I was telling somebody just today, Najette, that we don't, so I'm huge on rapport building. Rapport building is one of my core values. It's super important to me. And I was telling somebody today that when I love having conversations with people because you just never know who you're talking to, how the conversation is going to go, or what it's gonna come out of. It could be just a connection. It could be somebody that you're gonna collaborate with. It's gonna somebody that you're gonna work with. It might be somebody that's someone that's gonna buy from you. But you just never know where it's gonna go. But until you have that conversation, you have to have it in order to figure out what's gonna happen. So,
Exactly.
Very super important. So I'm glad that things are going well. I'm sure that business is going well as well, and I'm sure it's going to pick up and it's going to get better and better. You sound like you were doing the right things to get yourself on track, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So before we begin, Najette, I always have a fun, thought-provoking question to ask my guests to get things going.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready for yours today?
I don't know. I guess I'm ready as I'll ever be.
So your question today is, why do we put shirts in a suitcase but put our suits in a garment bag?
Is there a punch at the end?
No.
It's not a joke.
That's the question. That's the question. Want to get your thoughts?
Why do we put shirts in a? Well, would a shirt qualify as being part of a suit?
I wouldn't. I mean, it could, but usually we put our suits, like our shirts, like our dress shirts or our t-shirts or whatever, in a suitcase But a suit, I mean, in other words, this question is, wouldn't a suit go in a suitcase as well? Why would it be in a garment bag?
No. Because you want that suit. If you're traveling with a suit, you want that suit as crisp and clean as possible. I would put it in a garment bag. I mean, I guess maybe they could revisit the term garment bag and call it a suit bag. But I think that the suit goes in the bag so that it can stay crisp and clean for when you arrive. You've got that, no worries. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay. That makes total sense to me. I love it. I love your answer. There's never any right or wrong answer, Najette. We just have fun, have a little bit of a giggle before. So I love it. Thanks for having fun with me. Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about you, your story, and of course your why?
Yeah. So, just quickly, I guess I graduated from Concordia University. I have a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Arts degree with my major being history. I had no idea what I wanted to do, like so many people. I really didn't. So tried different things. I tried teaching, realized I did not have the patience to be a teacher. Love the kids. They ripped up my heartstrings, but I just could not see myself doing that long term. It just didn't feel right like a right fit to me. And then, in trying different things, went into customer service. Of course, that's the fallback for every post-grad. I started in, after I left teaching, I went into customer service. And, you realize early on, if you have a knack for that connection, being able to have a connection with someone else. And I saw that in customer service, and I liked it. I liked, making people happy at the end of the call, or, being able to do somebody a service. It made me feel good, leaving people happy. I loved how I felt, but I knew that being in customer service was not going to, for me personally, it was not going to be enough. I always felt I wanted to do more and more. And early on in my career, I tried different things. I never wanted to be into sales. I found sales was too salesy. Sales was too hardcore. It was too aggressive, too removed from the individual. All of those things that people think sales is. And so I kind of parked that, and then I went down the road of customer service, and ended up falling into, like so many people fall into recruitment. I fell into recruitment because of my abilities in customer service, my abilities to connect with individuals. And again, I mean, early on in my career, because, when you're in recruiting, it's not like, there's not like different levels. I mean, you eventually, you become a seasoned recruiter, but you're still a recruiter, so you don't end up becoming CFO of anything, you're a recruiter. So I wanted to explore different things. I wanted to see what else I could accomplish early on in my career. So I went into HR, and I took that as far as I could. I became an HR director, which I was pretty proud of that. I was proud of that accomplishment, especially not having, the educational background in it. I kind of, you hustle and you learn and you do a lot of things on the job and you figure stuff out. And there's a lot of logic in pretty much everything we do, and reason and common sense. So all of that combined brought me to be a director at that level. I was really happy with that. And then, fast forward to having my daughter, thinking, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna have this, and then I'm gonna go right back to work because, I'm a careerist, so always thought of my career. And I have my one and only child. So I had no idea. How I was going to feel, having this child. So
Right.
I had my child, and of course I did not go back to work. I wanted to stay home, and I wanted to be as close as possible to my child. And I ended up leaving my job and taking whatever contracts I could as a recruiter.
Right.
from working from home. So I was working from home before working from home was a thing. I was doing the remote pretty much for the past 15 years. So what ended up happening was I saw it was, timing and opportunity is everything. And the timing of me doing these, recruiting gigs and the fact that I had all of this experience behind me combined with my HR background, it was the perfect combination to keep going, and that and my desire to continue to stay home as much as possible, be as close to my daughter as possible. So it just kind of grew from there. And I would say it didn't just grow, it kind of exploded, because you reach a point in your career where you're like, not only do I have this, I have this times 4 or 5 or 6, like I can do this. So I can run circles around my younger self, because I've acquired a lot of skills and experience along the way. So you reach a point where, I can really hustle. I can take on 2, 3, 4 contracts at a time. Like there's nothing stopping me. No. And when you've got that drive and motivation and passion for what you do, it's just the sky's the limit. So it was just the right timing and the right opportunities that came to me that made me realize this is exactly where I need to be. This is exactly what I love to do, exactly where I need to be. And I never looked back since then. So I started as an independent contractor and then eventually grew into what it is today, which is pro.
Wonderful. Well, I think that recruitment, I 100% agree with you that recruitment, I think you have to have that. You talked about rapport building and you talked about customer service and building that rapport with people. I think it kind of comes hand in hand with recruitment. So I understand how dealing with people and then kind of falling into it. I could see how it just gravitated to you. So I love that story. You like to leave people happy. You like to have people, and that is HR in a nutshell for me, is leaving people happy and leaving people in a good place and making sure that, they have a safe work environment. So I love all that stuff. And it seems like you put it all together and it's all in a bundle and everything is working out for you. So that's awesome.
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. So why don't we start off with asking, what is it? So we're talking about the 4-day work week. What is the structure of the 4-day work week in your mind?
Well, I think it could be, I don't think there's any one 4-day work week model. I mean, there's companies that do 10-hour work days. There's others that cut it at 32, like a 32-hour work week. And then there's, flex hours, depending on what the needs of the business are. I think any one of those models could work in a 4-day work week.
Okay. And is it has there been so this structure that you say, it kind of depends. So does it depend on the organization? Does the organization kind of figure that out, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think it depends on a lot of things. I think it depends on the industry, the company size, specific job roles. I mean, if you've got a call center and your call center is 24/7, then that's obviously going to factor into the structure, however you want to map that out.
Because I could see the structure of, like I said, different companies, and I could see it not working out for people. So I have a friend of mine who works a 4-day work week. They work 10 hours. So I believe he works 7 to 5, mm-hmm. and then he has Fridays off. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, it probably wouldn't work because he doesn't have any kids.
Right.
So for someone who has kids and
mm-hmm.
you're working until, let's say, 5 or 6 o'clock at night, mm-hmm. it might not work.
No, it wouldn't work. And I think that, this conversation, 4-day work week it's making noise. I mean, people are talking about it, and I get it. I get it. It's ever since the pandemic kind of flipped everything upside down. It became all of a sudden it's on the table, just like working from home was on the table. So, or is still on the table. But I think that there are so many things that go into that. And I think that for me, hearing people talk about having a 4-day work week, of course, any company can structure it according to their needs, right? Any company can go, okay, we're going to do the 10-hour model or the 32-hour work week or the flexible hours. But at the end of the day, it comes down to people being able to perform their jobs or not, people being able to deliver or not. So, I would put it in the same category as remote work. I think that, the benefits are similar in that you've got the improved work-life balance. People claim it increases productivity for them, reduces absenteeism. There's an environmental impact to it, so fewer commuting. So I feel like it's a similar argument. A similar argument can be made.
Right.
But for me personally, having worked remote, like I said, at this point, well into 15 years of my career, I can tell you that it really is not for everybody, just like the 4-day work week. And if we're going to table the 4-day work week, then if people are saying, yeah, I can do my work in 4 days instead of 5, then what's stopping you from doing your work in 4 days now?
Well, that's what I wanted to. So that's what I want to get into, because I want how do companies make it work, and how can then how can somebody do the same job in less amount of time? Because there's some people that stay because they haven't finished their work, so they have to stay a little bit later. So now you're taking a day away from their tasks. So now, wouldn't somebody have to stay even, maybe a little bit later than what it may not be for everybody, but in some cases, wouldn't some people have to stay a little bit later in some cases because they're off the next day, or do they just not worry about it?
I don't know. Honestly, Andrew, I don't think people, and I'm generalizing, but I don't think the majority of people can actually handle that. And I'll give you an example.
Right.
I woke up today at my desk at 8:30, and that's late. That's late. For some people start at 9, some people, I find 8:30, I'm already behind the game, right? So, but I'm a business owner, so I get it. My mentality is different. But let's say for the average worker, they start their day at 9. Now for me, I start at 8:30, and I go from file to file to file to meeting to email and I do not stop. I'll take 10 minutes for lunch. Some people will say, well, that's not very healthy. It's not a good way to be, blah, 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 all of this. But I find at the end of the day, I feel very accomplished. I feel very good about what I've done in my day. Can the average person maintain this type of hustle in their day?
Right.
I'm going to probably go with no. People have, limits. They have, they cap. They need a coffee break. They need a smoke break. They need people need that. And I'm not judging that. I'm not judging people for that, because you're working at capacity for you.
Right.
So, is it realistic for a company to say, to make a blanket rule of a 4-day work week, going from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, and expecting those same people who perform, some days they're moderate performers. Not everybody's going to be on top of their game every single day. So is that 5th day kind of a buffer to kind of make up for all of the inactivity during the week?
Right. And I don't want our listeners to so I'm asking Najette this question. I don't want our listeners to think that I am against it. I am in no way against it. I've just been hearing a lot about it, and I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm trying to figure out is, and I guess it would have to be that, depends on the company,
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say, Najette, you're the manager of the business, and I'm working a 4-day work week,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm supposed to work 8 to 6, right?
Yes.
And something happens, and for whatever reason, could be traffic, could be here where I live, the train is all over the city, so a train could derail you for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up late. I show up half hour late.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, depending on the company, some companies would expect you to stay half hour later.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies would say, well, don't worry about it. It is. So I guess it depends on the manager, I guess.
Well, it depends on the manager, and it depends on the company culture. It depends on their values. And I think that, the situation you just described sounds very exceptional. And, if the person is performant 99% of the time, why not cut them some slack? It's not their fault. That to me is a very human approach to it, right? And I think that going back to, should companies put a blanket 4-day work week rule? I don't think that would be a good idea, because
Right.
I think it's not for everybody, and it's not for every role in the company.
Right.
And also, it depends on, could it be merit based? If you see somebody constantly delivering, you're delivering day after day, you're constantly hitting your targets, why not put some sort of benefit in there to say, well, you know what, if this person, at the end of their year, if they've performed, over and above, can we put that type of reward system in place? I don't know. But to me, it seems like something that should not just be given. I think it's something that should be earned and based on results. Really, that probably is how I would see it.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think it's kind of, company situationally based, and I think it's individual based. So, like I was saying earlier, if you were a couple, you don't have any kids, it would work. Maybe if you have kids, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe if some people were, with the times, some people are having to work a second job. So, they can't stay later because they have to go to that second job on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, type thing. So they can't stay later. So they have to work the 5-day work week. So I guess it's very situational, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about it today. So we kind of went into a little bit, but I kind of want to go into a little bit more in depth here. So in your mind, what are the when you're talking about we're talking about a 4-day work week, what are the keys to consider when we're looking to establish that?
All right. So some things to consider for a 4-day work week, as I was saying earlier, is, for example, if you're a service business, you want to make sure that your customer coverage is complete. There are no interruptions because of a 4-day work week. You're going to consider setting clear goals for your employees. So making sure that everything is clearly defined, everything is measurable for employees to achieve. We're shifting from focusing on hours worked to focusing on accomplishments, right? So I think that's actually a positive, I believe. And the evaluations become performance based, right? So you want to that's part of focusing on results, if you will, and not hours. Right. The other thing that they're going to want to do, I think companies that would want to implement this, is reduce meetings. I think that's probably, I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels meetings can be really, really long and frequent. So there must be a better way to say the things you want to say in less meetings. I think that certainly will help reduce hours, and make people a little bit more efficient. And I think that's part of communication, right? Encouraging use of emails, maybe sharing documents. That I think all of that will help in the reduction of meetings. I think maybe they would probably want to look at implementing flexible scheduling. So, how are we going to, that's the other thing. I mean, we're assuming that everybody's going to have Friday off, but maybe that's not it. Maybe somebody would not work on a Wednesday, or maybe somebody would want a Thursday off or a Monday, so employees working different sets of four days. Like, you'd want to make sure that coverage is thorough throughout the week, right? Or setting core hours. That's another thing that I think would probably be a requirement. So I just, I'm not sure how many companies have implemented this already. I think that there's not many, although some are saying, I believe there's a company, I think it's Microsoft Japan, that implemented a 4-day work week, and they're claiming a 40% increase in productivity. So, I think that it has to be carefully thought out with a lot of the elements I mentioned, right?
Right. I love when you said setting clear goals. I would imagine that so you're recruiting for a role, the person gets hired, and so now that manager's there and they're having an orientation, it's the first day. So I would say a good manager is going to sit and they're going to, with that candidate, and they're going to, or new employee, and they're going to go over all the specific goals for the candidate. Mm-hmm. And they're going to give the clear expectations. So what they're expecting from that employee, right, is where I'm going. So if the company is doing a 4-day work week, they're going to, so if you were, for example, if you're hiring, let's say it's a customer service role and it's a 4-day work week, well, you're not going to be I mean, I would think that you're not going to be hiring somebody and then let them say, well, what day works for you. You're going to be hiring, and like you said, if there's a specific day, you're going to say, okay, well, it's a 4-day work week, but your day off is going to be Wednesday. Are you okay with that? Because, right, so I think that would kind of be something that I think a lot of places would do, and that would make sense to me. Mm-hmm. The person that is applying may not be too thrilled about having a day off midweek, but that's the job. So it's either you're okay with it or you're not. In my mind.
Yeah, and you raise a really good point, Andrew. Is that, like, you will never ever be able to make everybody happy. There's no one model that is going to please everybody. So if the company decides, okay, it's Wednesday, that person's not happy with it, then it was all for naught, right?
Right.
Or, let's do Thursdays, or let's do Mondays, or let's do, flex schedule. There's no pleasing everybody. Right. So, like, what do you do with that?
Right. Exactly. So we know that a 4-day work week, we know all the good things. We talked about it earlier. It's good for mental health. Production goes up. We have safer work environments.
Yeah.
What's, to most companies,
yes,
what's wrong with a 5-day work week?
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier about, if people are mulling over the 4-day work week concept, then that kind of, doesn't that imply that whatever we're doing now in 5 days, we could do in 4?
Yep. I love your answer. I love it. I love that thought. I love that thought.
Yeah, so I find, I think that, and then that goes back to, again, merit. I think that it should be merit-based. I think, there could be a flex model where, people have proven themselves to reach their targets and, have amazing attitudes, are great colleagues, teamwork, collaborators, basically hit all the marks.
Right.
Why not reward those people? Why not reward those people and say, you know what, you can do what you're doing in 4 and we'll pay you. But then that's the other question. Are we paying people for 4 or 5 days?
Right. Well,
is there going to be a reduction in size? It's there's a whole can of worms with that, right?
Right. So what I like about this is it's and you hit the button right in the head, or hit head right in the button there, is that when we're talking, so all these things that we're talking about, we weren't talking about these things years ago. So what's amazing to me is that these conversations are being had. And why are we having these conversations? Because, like you said before, things are not working the way they used to years ago. So now we need to try to figure out things that will help to ease the tension. So there's a lot of people, I mean, just talking about mental health, I don't even remember people talking about that when I first started working. No one was talking about mental health. People just did their work. If they were sick, they called in sick, but they didn't call, or they didn't go to a doctor and say, "Oh, I'm going to be off for mental health." So I think just all these things, including the 4-day work week, I think it's good as far as a conversation, because I think it's important that we have them.
Yes.
And it's important that we try to figure out what is best for our organization and for our employees.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, a nice compromise that I've seen in the market has been a 4.5-day work week, which is great and often implemented only during that summer season, like starting Victoria Day weekend, ending Labor Day weekend, where all, summer hours. Companies that have implemented that say, well, you make up those hours during the week, but people that are performant, nobody's clock watching. If you're performing and if you're doing your job well and you still leave at 5 and you still use the summer hours, nobody's going to look, nobody's going to ask, nobody's going to think twice about it. They're going to say, bye, have a great weekend, So I think that to me is a nice compromise, to say, gives people a break on Friday afternoons. Everybody knows Friday afternoons are not exactly productive. So why not give it to people? And I like that. I think that that's a nice kind of compromise that has worked. That's proven to be successful amongst many companies.
Yeah, I could see that working, especially if you have a cottage or a chalet, and you're and you go and you're going there for the weekend, that would be great to finish at 5, finish earlier, and then you can get home, pack everything, get ready to go. And then when everybody's home, you're ready to hit the road and head out for the weekend. So I'm sure that would be great for most people, for sure. And who wouldn't want to finish early, like say on a Friday? I mean, I know I would love to finish early on a Friday. I can't think of anybody who wouldn't. So
exactly. Me too. And then couple that with a hybrid work model, and then you got Mondays. You're home on Mondays because the hybrid work model. A lot of companies implement. Well, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you got to be in the office. So imagine you've got summer hours and you're leaving Friday at noon, and you're up at that chalet, and you hit traffic Sunday night, and you don't feel like getting up at 6 to be in traffic. You're golden because you're working from home on Monday. So to me, that's a nice work-life balance. That's a nice compromise, I think. And
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. So, Najette, tell me about the 3 most influential people in your life and how they've impacted your career.
So I'm going to go with the obvious, I know, but it's my parents, right?
That's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
My parents, but they're each of them for their own reasons, right? Okay. So they're very, very, very different people. They were very different people. So those are 2. So I'd start with my dad. My dad was always an entrepreneur. So I got that entrepreneurial kind of gift from him. I don't know. He was a funny guy. Like every morning, even if he had nowhere to go, Andrew, he would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, take his shower, shave, sit at the table, have his coffee, and read the paper. And he would be in a suit. He would be in a suit, even if he had nowhere in particular to go. And I really admired that because he was ready for the day. So for that, I say that's pretty awesome. That was a pretty awesome thing that I learned from my dad. And my mother, she just, my poor mom, she hustled her whole life. There was no job that was beneath her to raise her kids, to give food to her kids. Like that was something that beyond words, when somebody's willing to do whatever it takes for other people.
Yeah.
I mean, just her kindness always blew me away. And her, no matter what life threw at her, she would have a smile or a song. And it just, that stayed with me, that this was before all of these, how to manifest and all of these wellness books came out, and way before we were talking about mental health, like you said.
Right.
My mother was the living, breathing proof of resilience. She was the living, breathing proof of positivity, of manifesting before even knowing what all that was. She just did all of that. And so that was my mother was my model. My mother was everything. So those two people. And then the third person is, no surprise, my sister, we grew up incredibly poor. We grew up very, very, very hard. It was a very hard life. And my sister was my inspiration for absolutely everything. She's a bit older than me. And so whatever my sister was going to do in life, I was going to follow. And thank God she is a brilliant, brilliant woman, because I followed her. So if my sister was going to go and, work 2 jobs to put herself through school, well, I'll do the same thing. And if my sister was going to, go into politics, I couldn't do that. I didn't have the gift of gab like my sister, but I made sure that I was on a different path professionally, but, something that would have, made her proud. And my sister to this day, she's an exceptional, exceptional human. I've never seen anybody with that work ethic and that drive. So I follow her. These 3 people are definitely people that inspire me.
I love that. I think that it's super important that that we have people that impact us and make us who we are. And from my conversations with you, Najette, I could tell that these people have impacted you and made you a hardworking and the person that you are. So, you talked about rapport building earlier, and I feel like they were a big influence on helping, molding you into the person that was able to talk to people and build rapport with them. And I think trust is huge. And you've been able to garner a lot of trust from the people that you work with. So that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. I really truly do owe it to mostly my mother and my sister. Yeah.
That's awesome. Any final thoughts today? Like, this has been such a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And any final thoughts?
I just think you're fantastic. I think that what you are giving back to the professional community is outstanding. Mm-hmm. I love it. I was just so looking forward to this time with you, and to be able to have this conversation. It's been absolutely delightful, and I hope I get invited back because I love you, Andrew.
Well, listen, you know what? I love the vulnerability in my guests. I just love that. So thank you so much for those kind words. I really appreciate that. And I think it's super important to have those people who are supporting you and backing you. So I thank you for your support through this whole process. And thank you for taking the time. And thank you for taking the time for me day one, and thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been great.
Oh, thank you as well, Andrew. I really, really appreciate your time. It's been really lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome. On behalf of myself and my guest, Najette, I would like to thank you all for listening today. And until next time, be safe. And remember, everybody, that if we all work together, we can accomplish anything.
You have been listening to Let's Be Diverse with Andrew Stoute. To stay up to date with future content, hit subscribe.